At some point, I heard this fun fact that Alex Hirsch originally planned for 3 seasons, and after realizing how hard it was to run an entire show, he decided to combine the latter 2 seasons into the season 2 we see today. Now over time, I've come to believe this as a fact. Even though I couldn't find the source, you can kind of tell with how halfway through season 2, it becomes a different show. Season 2 could most definitely have been 2 seasons. With how unplot-focused season 1 was for the majority of it, you could see how if he spaced out the season 2 plot episodes with Not What He Seems being the finale, we could have had time to breathe and enjoy the new dynamic of the newly found uncle. Though, I believe that if this happened, if season 3 was made of the same quality but a longer length, we would have said that this season was bad.
What?
I know, I love this show too, but it's hard to deny how hard Gravity Falls truly falls off after Not What He Seems and the subsequent episodes that takes place immediately after. I believe the fact that we didn't catch on to the fact it was much worse was something I call the Star Versus effect.
Star versus the forces of evil.
As you may know, Star Versus fell from grace very, very hard, becoming a pale imitation of itself. But the cutoff point was after their Battle for Mini special, being essentially a Not What It Seems for an entire movie length. After this, it took a while for many of the fans to realize the show got worse, because of them just being so excited to see more of the show that they love, after such an exciting ending. But watching it now, after knowing how worse the show gets, it's immediately obvious to tell how horrendous the show got. Right after the climax to all the plot, ships, and arcs that built up so far in the show, the first episode is Star sniffing Marco's hoodie because it smells like him. And the episode is about how she doesn't want to wash this stinky, dirty clothing. At first, fans didn't think this was bad, but just weird. Assuming this would be just a one-off thing and that isn't a sign of how terrible the show would become by being ruined by wild shipping that jumps all over the place for no reason at all other than for relationship drama. Which also barely happened in the show before this, by the way. I say all this to relate back to Gravity Falls. If we judged these episodes by it being the new season standard, we would have ranked the show season 2, 1, and then 3 in last place. Mainly praising some plot episodes and the fact that the finale happens this season. Gravity Falls was able to make the audience never think that by making each episode incredible for the first half of season 2, having some weaker than season 1 non-plot episodes, with some weaker than the first half season 2 plot episodes, then having an emotional finale, all within a single season. We were still in the honeymoon phase of how great the earlier parts were, plus the fact that it's all labeled under one single season, making us never really consider if the show got worse. But I've been doing a lot of talky about how the season gets worse without doing the walkie of taking you through why I believe this. So let's get right into it with A Tale of Two Stands.
My brother.
Oh my god, babe.
Family.
Right after the incredible, awesome, and downright amazing episode of television that was Not What He Seems, we got A Tale of Two Stands.
Brother!
This being the episode 1 special of this season 3. Just like how Battle for Mini is technically in season 3 of Star Versus, while being the epic finale that led on from season 2's finale. Meaning that this episode isn't a reflection of what this season offers, more of an impactful story beat special that follows a cliffhanger of a finale that was not what he seems. This episode gets into both of the Stan twins' backstory for a majority of the episode, ending with the plot of the previous episodes of season 2 being wrapped up fairly fast and easy. The plot of being distrusting Grunkle Stan, the US government tracking them down, and finding the author of the journals. This leaving much room for a new structure of what season 3 holds in the first regular episode, Dungeons, and More Dungeons. I'll be honest, this is the first episode where even I, watching as a 13-year-old when it came out, thought it was very much a non-plot episode that just feels off from how the show was before, and I believe I can very easily explain why that is with just this first episode.
Your math is no match for my gun, you idiot!
It's the fact that the show has never been this sci-fi.
Your math is no match for my gun, you idiot!
The way Gravity Falls has been with this show, and what made me fall in love with it, is how mythical and witchy the show is. In every other episode, the plot is always about an anomaly that the cast can't really fully understand without looking at what's been documented in the journal. To just go through them real fast, we have gnomes, Loch Ness Monster, alive sculptures, a child with a magic gem, ghosts, manly minotaurs, paper machine clones, President being held alive in an amber-like substance. Time travel tape measure. A live arcade cabinet. Shrinking and glowing flashlight. Satan in the form of candy. Monster you shouldn't look at. A bottomless pit. A mermaid boy in a pool. A carpet that can body swap. Clones, but celebrities this time. Dinosaurs being held alive in an amber-like substance. A dream demon. And a child with a big robot. With those, only a few have sci-fi elements. The Loch Ness Monster episode had McGucket make a robot version of the monster to get attention of his son that is never mentioned again. Clones and the body-swapping carpet are both seemingly either experiments or found cursed technology, which can all be crafted just like how the size-changing flashlight was made from taping a crystal that is affected by light to a flashlight. Being ingenuitive with a natural fine resource instead of a laser gun that just looks futuristic and not scrappily forged at all. The time travel tape measure and the Band Boy clones can both be said as just how wild the 1% in Hollywood can be, and also blend-in bland-ins from the future, so it's not that much of a stretch. But either way, it can all be boiled down to how they present these elements. With many of these other sci-fi elements, they are presented with a founding and unknown quality to them. All these things are found within the plot of the episode, while also being the focus about how weird and absurd these are, which is the focus of the episode. With the other ones being explained by McGucket Shrug, which could be a cop-out, but over the show they really have it be known how crazy Fulford is at inventing at their very second episode. And every crazy invention can be traced back either to Fiddleford or Great Uncle Ford. But with those, you can see how rustic or seamful the designs of everything are, showing that these guys are crafting these machines themselves. But in this one episode, we have to assume that he made the most blend-in futuristic looking technology of his Ready Player One shocking gloves, a laser gun, and an infinity-sided dice that can literally cause anything possible to happen. Okay, he didn't invent that one, but the way it's designed is enough to get the idea of how different these designs are, causing everything to look overly sci-fi futuristic. And this goes into a different problem that I want to talk about that affects another sci-fi show you may have heard of. Gravity Falls has a bit of a Rick and Morty problem.
Wubba lubba dub dub.
Is that true?
In my people's tongue,
Wubba dubba dub.
means I am in great. Please.
Something that happens in the very few episodes we have with Ford is how he can invent and do anything the plot needs him to. Well, before, if Dipper needed to grow and shrink someone, he'd scrounge in the journal for something he could use for it, resulting in the flashlight I mentioned earlier. Now, he just asked Great Uncle Ford if he had something he could use, just like we see in the next episode, the Stentorian candidate. I believe this is another glimpse in what we could have assumed an episode would be like during this time, in this hypothetical version of Season 3. Either Ford would introduce something that would monkey spawn to something bad like a Jimmy Neutron episode, or Dipper would ask for something just like in this very episode. The Centurion candidate is about Stan, Grunkle Stan that is, becoming a candidate for mayor, but Dipper and Mabel need to help make Grunkle Stan a better person by controlling what he says. But it is going real bad so far, which results in this line of both hate and love.
You're memeing fast and none of them are good.
You're memeing fast and none of them are good. So Dipper, being fed up with Stan's failure, goes to Great Uncle Ford, where earlier in the episode he invented a light bulb that would last for 1,000 years and make their skin softer, and he gives Dipper a device he believes could help, a pair of mind-controlling ties designed for Ronald Reagan. Something that was just lying around in Great Uncle Ford's drawer, and when showing what it's made of, it literally just makes computer wires and does technology sounds.
And you can make him a literal talking head.
Whoa! Do you see what I mean? Instead of explaining how he made it, or it has some mythical witchy aspect, like using a mind manipulation magic, or a powder like Love's God Potions, it's just like beep boop, he's smart and can just do this. Which is exactly what ruined Rick and Morty for many people, including myself. If Rick can just invent anything at any time with any items, it makes him OP to the point it's boring. Like, a later point in the show, in Season 4, where him and Phoenix Person, previously known as Bird Person,
Wubba lubba dub dub.
are having a battle to the death, where every couple of seconds, Rick has a new way to come back to life and fight. This scene is animated very, very well, but the fact that this is how crazy Rick can be, it just made me not want to watch any more of this show. I thought it wasn't as good anyways by that point, but the fact that the fight felt completely weightless, like nothing was really happening, shows how terrible this problem has become. I actually did watch up to 2 more episodes, ending with Season 5, Episode 2 of Rick and Morty, then stopped. But that doesn't really matter to discussing too much, so sorry for mentioning it, but I just wanted to share something about myself sometimes, okay? This is why I said that Gravity Falls has a bit of a Rick and Morty problem. Because obviously it's only a bit of a problem with these few episodes we see, but that's why I'm saying that if this show had the full 3 seasons that was originally planned, season 3 would be the weakest. But we didn't get enough time to breathe before we got another plot episode with the last Maplecorn.
What are you gonna do about it? Huh?
If this episode didn't come out this soon, this show would have been terrible. That's a YouTuber way of saying not that great. Think about it. If we had 10 episodes that were of the same quality of those 2 that came after A Tale of Two Stands, with those episodes we covered being the basis of what non-plot episodes would be like, the show would have been known as getting less good for a bit before the emotional finale. But instead we got a real fast banger of a plot episode. The last Maplecorn goes right back into talking about Bill Cipher and how they need to protect the shack and their minds from him. So Mabel goes off on a wild goose chase going to Ford sends her on for a unicorn hair, and agreeing he needs to protect those in the shack's minds with a curse spell type witchy thing. Meanwhile, Ford actually plans for him and Dipper to protect their minds through experiments, knowing that Mabel will likely not return with her promised unicorn hair. This episode is incredibly well done and well paced. It goes between the comedy and character growth of Mabel hunting down the hair and learning that she doesn't need to prove to other people that she's a good person, while Ford and Dipper protect their minds and get even more backstory that Ford didn't say in Not What He Seems. Though this episode would have been much more impactful with more episodes to see how Ford and Dipper grow to enjoy and trust each other. I'd say even with me being very critical of these episodes, this absolutely bangs as an episode, being a highlight of the show. They don't use any crazy technology, essentially using a version of the mind erase guns to look through their thoughts. And when Ford threateningly approaches Dipper in a misunderstanding, it forces Dipper to use the memory erase gun as a weapon in self-defense, resulting in a pretty well-rounded and consistent with the rest of the episodes of the show. Because of the technology not being this crazy sci-fi mumbo-jumbo and Ford seemingly being vulnerable to Dipper's weapon, made these scenes super impactful and not being an episode that feels weird in the same way as the others.
It begins with a star and ends with
Versus the forces of evil.
Man, what is that, a woodpecker?
Then the next episode was the worst of the show. But that's not really related to any of the reasons I brought up other than maybe the Star Versus one. This episode immediately takes place after the previous episode where Mabel actually ends up getting the unicorn hair, meaning Ford makes a field around the shack. And I repeat, only around the shack. With the after credits scene even saying that Bill Cipher is looking for someone on the outside.
So I'll just have to find my next pawn on the outside.
So in this episode, Roadside Attraction, they go on a gosh darn road trip outside the Mystery Shack, with this episode's after credits seemingly mocking the audience for paying attention as Seuss is left alone outside the shack, which results in nothing to do with Bill Cipher whatsoever.
Where is Seuss anyway?
And how does this relate to Star Versus, you may be wondering, as I said that a second ago? Well, remember what ruined that show was the insistence upon shipping even if it ruins any of the characters involved, going against what they learned and grew from. This episode begins with bringing up Dipper having a crush on Wendy, which was fully talked about and dealt with in the very second episode of this very season, which also makes the only episode focused on Candy Chu being one of the main characters, being the episode that focuses on shipping the characters. Just like how Star vs. the Force of Evil did with Kelly, only for it to never come up again and for Candy to be on the equal spotlight as just one of Mabel's friends. I could talk for much longer about Roadside Attraction and how bad it is and how angry I can get about it. But I don't think I need to go any further as to why the episode is so bad as to be the worst episode of the show. That'll have to be saved for another video.
Have you thought much?
No, not really.
The next episode is then just a prelude to the finale arc. Just like how Now It Seems it's a prelude to the Tale of Two Stands special. This meaning that this episode does a lot of plot and character development very fast. I don't need to overly get into this episode, as no matter whether or not the show was 3 seasons or if the show got worse in season 2B, it doesn't change what this episode is. An episode to go into the finale arc that is Wittermageddon. But what I will say is that this episode is still very good. I would say I don't like it as much as the last Maplecorn in terms of forward plot focus episodes. And I did love that brief period of time where we thought, or at least I thought, that this was the finale episode of the entire show and later cried in the shower. only to figure out the next day that they're going to have more episodes in a whole like Weirdmageddon arc. But overall, this is a very good episode and doesn't break these rules I talked about throughout the show. Yes, there's futuristic technology, but it's because it's quite literally aliens, and the show talks about how big and crazy it is that the aliens are here and whether or not they caused the weirdness attraction in Gravity Falls, or if it attracted the weirdness, while also putting Ford in a place where Dipper needs to save him, not having this OP smart guy problem I've talked about.
You give me my house back, you give me my name back, and this Mystery Shack junk is over forever.
No!
I don't doubt that the writers of Gravity Falls could have made season 3 if it was full length, good and worthy of the space of episodes. I believe these episodes are a bit messy because, again, the sci-fi Rick and Morty type concerns, but these writers are clever enough to have inserted other plots and character beats into the mix that would have made it feel like a well-rounded season. Just like they would have for this hypothetical version of the season 2. These writers are talented and brilliant, so I have no doubt that it could have been amazing. Again, as I said in the very beginning of this episode, Alex and his team allegedly had a real hard time making the show with how stressful an experience like that can be. So they shortened it to season 2 instead of a season 2 and 3. I do believe that version of the show would have been better pacing with the episodes, but what we got is still incredible. And I don't mean to come across as ungrateful or anything. This show is quite literally my favorite cartoon show from the adventure-like genre. I had a whole video explaining what that genre means, but it's essentially just a show that's similar to or like Adventure Time and would love for more, which we are. We're getting more with the books and comics that are slowly released over time. But I'll never stop loving this show, and I'll never stop making videos about whatever I can about it. Because this whole video was literally me talking about what Season 2B of Gravity Falls is kind of less good than the rest of the show. I will and can talk about anything I'm passionate enough about, which is probably why Mabel rant type videos pop up every once in a while. Not because of people hating the show or Mabel, but by pointing out something that is annoying or unclever or oversought about this show. I hope everyone keeps talking about this show forever, just like I probably always will. Either way, I hope you enjoyed the video. Pretty please comment what you thought about it. I will be reading literally all the feedback. Love you. Bye. See you later. Bonjour. Bye.